Hi everyone, and welcome to a review of The Death of Jane Lawrence by Caitlin Starling. This is an adult novel and it is classified as horror. And then the next genre under that is gothic. So definitely is a gothic horror. So this one we're following from the perspective of Jane. This is set in the, I want to say it's the 1800s, or either that or I don't really know exactly when it was set. It gives kind of 1800s vibes. So, obviously where the women wore blouses and had those little, I think one of the things that was popular at that time was like little brooches that they would wear sometimes on the collar of their blouse. Along the neck would be like a brooch that is in like a silhouette of some kind. And it was all obviously long sleeves and then a long skirt, and things like that. So that's the vibe that I get from this. So we're following, again, like I said, Jane. She decides to enter into a marriage of convenience to Augustine, I think is his name. There's another book I'm reading that has August as the name, and I believe this one is Augustine. This is like in a small town. Yeah, Augustine Lawrence is the person that she's entering into the marriage of convenience with. And Augustine is the doctor for this town. Augustine is not real prevalent in this. It's just all from Jane's perspective. So she kind of goes with this marriage proposal. Augustine comes to her house, and she is the survivor of a recent war, and you do learn that right away. So Augustine shows up at her house. She makes this proposal to him, why she thinks they would be a suitable match for each other. How it would not only be a marriage of convenience for her, but also for him. So she kind of explains into that. He says he'll think on it. A couple days later, she ends up trying to help him with the bookkeeping at his surgery, is what it's called. So at the doctor's office, but it's called surgery back in this time. And then she also gets pulled away from the books to help inside of the operating room. One thing I will say right off the bat is this book is full of body horror. So if you like horror but not body horror, you'll definitely want to avoid this book because of the body horror. So as the days progress, they realize they're more and more of a match. And the way this was pitched, it was like she shouldn't go to Lindridge Hall because he's very different. And that was my understanding of it. And I would have to disagree with that little brief synopsis that I've been hearing all over BookTube. She goes to Lindridge Hall and she can tell, like, the only difference is that he's not as confident with himself as he is when he's at the surgery, when he was visiting her house. That's really the only difference. He is very much who he is. He's just, you can tell he's anxious. Well, it turns out you have haunting aspects of this story as well. And of course, when it comes to haunting aspects, some people are just going to be anxious. So this incident occurs and she has to go to Lindridge Hall, and she can't make it home to the surgery where they've arranged that's where she'll sleep every night, is at the surgery. There's like some bedrooms up above the surgery. And so she would sleep there. But she does not make it home and ends up spending the night in Lindridge Hall. And then she realizes firsthand what it is that he pretty much experiences. She realizes that things are not quite right with Lindridge Hall, and things like that. You do, there is this haunting that kind of keeps popping up, who is a previous relation to Augustine. That's as far as I'm going to go with that. But I can't remember her name right off. But anyway, So it's like Jane describes her as having red eyes and things like that. So that's interesting. She's seeing these hauntings and experiencing them along with Augustine. Now, right from the very first, like within the first 5 chapters, Augustine goes missing. And, you know, people are out looking for him, and Jane's like, I have to stay at Lindridge Hall in case he shows up. Well, one of the things that happens that leads up to this is this conversation about magic, and is magic real? And of course, Jane doesn't believe. But Augustine believes. And he has some people that show up on the night of their wedding, or like the day or two after their wedding, who are also fellow doctors, and they all also believe in magic. And they rope Jane into kind of joining them for this process, and that's when the hauntings really start to kick off. So, and it's shortly after that that Augustine goes missing. Now, and then you're just, so for the rest of the book, you're following Jane as she tries to figure out where Augustine went. She starts to believe more and more in magic and witchcraft, but it's just referred to as magic. So she starts to believe in that more and more, and you're following the process of what leads her to believe into it more, of her thinking as far as what she can do to try to get Augustine back from wherever it was that he has disappeared to. And you have rituals that she performs, so you know how in some movies and maybe in some other books, when they talk about having a protective circle in witchcraft to protect you from evil, that's very prevalent in this, and that's part of the reason why there's a circle around the word of. So you get that circle a lot. It was repetitive as far as having to keep redoing the protective circle, which I actually didn't mind, because it was repetitive in a way that it's like, this is how it has to, how the start of every ritual has to be in order to try to protect the person inside the circle from negative forces and demons or something like that that want to harm her. So that it was very important in this. I ended up giving this like a 4.75, so it was just shy of a 5-star mark. I thoroughly enjoyed this, and I know I haven't heard a lot of people talk about this, but I have heard that people say they're excited to read this. But then when I hear people talk about this for other people on BookTube, I haven't really heard what they thought about it, because I haven't read it yet. But what I've heard them say is they have heard bad reviews on this. And I'm looking at this going, okay, I can see why some people won't like it, because of the body horror and the repetitive nature of this. But again, the repetitive nature is slightly different each time. There's enough of a difference that even though there is a repetitiveness to it, it's still new when you're going through and reading it for the first time, especially. So I really enjoyed this, and this has confirmed that I really like body horror. You are you're in a person's stomach cavity at one point, and it does get graphic with the body horror. There is an instance where someone's like, it goes into depths about someone's intestines being twisted. There's another spot where it's like the doctor has to perform a surgery to remove the baby from a woman's body, and things like that. So there's a lot going into that, which again, he's a doctor and it's a horror, so you're going to have quite a bit of body horror. One of the things that one of the little threads you're following through this is about guilt, and how the doctor has guilt for not being able to save every patient. And at times he's pretty high and mighty on himself, thinking he should be able to do that. He has the power to do that. but yet there's guilt when he can't save someone. And so there is reference to guilt and loss of patience as well. I'm trying to think. I just loved the body horror in this. There is one part that actually made me gag, and I'm not just talking like a little ew, that was gross. I'm talking like it physically made me gag. Now, this one part that made me gag does get repeated a couple of times, so I knew after the first experience what to expect going into the other times. All I'm going to say about that is it's the first time that I read the instance that has to do with a hen's egg. If you've read this book, you'll know what I'm referring to. If you don't, and you like body horror or can handle body horror, and you want to know, then pick up the book. So, anyway, so it just goes on, and, you know, obviously, it just, you know, usually how things resolve, things get solved, some things don't, and things like that. This is a standalone book, so it's not part of a series. It is a standalone. I liked the writing. As far as the writing goes, I felt like it was not floral, but it was very to the point, but not to the point that it was very choppy and all over the place. So I still felt like it was fairly smooth, but it was very kind of blunt in a way. It's like, this is the way it is. So you're not getting a lot of florally descriptions. You're getting a lot of descriptions about magical rituals and things like that. And I actually liked it being to the point. I do sometimes like the lyrical writing, but sometimes I feel like it's overly done. That definitely was not a problem with this one. What else can I say about this? So one of the things I can say about this is Jane kind of gave off vibes of someone who was possibly on the autism spectrum, but back then obviously there was no thought of women being autistic. So, but she kind of gave those vibes. She is very good with math, very stereotypical of that. But she's like, you know, good with bookkeeping, which I'm good with bookkeeping. But also to the point where it's like she's learned how in certain situations she should act and not act in other situations. And kind of forcing a front, putting on this mask of how she should be around certain people and things like that. And at one point, I believe she's all kind of like, it's like she's almost fully able to be herself. So there's just little hints. I don't know if she is or not. I can't confirm that. I can't deny it, but it kind of gave those vibes. I definitely have a woman that's autistic that would be considered high functioning autistic, and can definitely put on that mask or that front around people. And that's something that I liked. I like being able to see that little bit because I was able to see bits of myself in Jane as far as her thinking, and her thinking process when it comes to situations like that. So that was really interesting. There was one point that this did creep me out enough, and it was the part, I will say one of the ghosts that shows up in this book is a child, and that was the part that pretty much creeped me out. And it was at night, and I was trying to get ready for bed, and at that point I was like, nope, I am done for the night. So I had to put this aside and read kind of a lighthearted romance on my Kindle to relax me enough to sleep, because this was just going to wind me up and keep me up. But I thoroughly enjoyed this. I recommend, but again, only if you can handle body horror, or if you absolutely love body horror or enjoy it on some level. I loved it. I look forward to finding more books that have body horror in it. I just like it. I find it fascinating. So I really enjoyed this. Not quite a 5-star, but a 4.75, so pretty high up there. Definitely worth rereads in the future, and definitely I liked Caitlin Starling's writing, so I definitely look forward to picking up more of her works. I've actually have added them to my Amazon wish list, or at least one of her books, so that I can, at some point when I have money that I go, okay, I can, buy a book or two. It's definitely on the list that I can purchase it in the future and things like that. Or if I want to reward myself for something, some achievement or some goal, I've got it there, because those are, the wish list are books that I am prioritizing. I want a lot of books, but the wish list are books that I really want. And so I have another one of Caitlin's books on that list so that I can buy it as a reward, or just because at some point they're ones I want to prioritize over others. So I'll definitely buy that in the future. But yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed that. As far as like the red, so like the thread, so there's a needle that the hand is holding on this. And I think that's just an homage to the field that her husband is in with surgery. And same thing with the thread. Because the thread in this is kind of going in and out like stitches, and of course when someone has surgery, the doctors need to stitch up that wound so that it can heal, and so that's an homage to that as well. The ring on this finger is important. It is made out of bones, and that is referenced in the book as well. It's kind of like it's referenced that, but you learn more of the significance towards the end of the book. So I will just say the ring is important, and that's pretty much all I can really say. I don't want to go in and spoil things, so just know it is a little bit repetitive, but in my opinion, each time something repeats, like with the egg, that first time made me gag and then I was okay. It is varied just enough that it's not so overly repetitive that it's boring. It still is new each time, even though there's the hint of repetitiveness. So I loved it. Highly recommend. What else did I like about this? I just loved the atmosphere. So Lindridge Hall is something that you would see in a lot, is the type of mansion that you would see a lot in Gothic settings. So it does have that Gothic feel from cover to cover, which was absolutely great. So that'll be it for this video. Let me know if you've read this. Did you like it? Did you not? Have you read anything else by Caitlin Starling, and did you enjoy what you read by her? So definitely let me know, or whatever you want to let me know in the comment section below. So that's it. Until next time, stay true to yourself and enjoy a good book, and I will talk to you later.